Quick question to Christine. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
So are you new to the field, or are you already
No, so I've been with Keller Williams 3 years.
Okay, so
I was at 2 different places before that. I've been in the business about 6 years.
all right. No, so my question was like, are you faking the funk like us? Like, like fake it till you make it, or like,
I
oh, no,
kind
so
of
you
know what
clearly
I'm
know what you're
doing.
talking about.
I'm
Christine
always
is being
learning,
very
but
modest. She's a very excellent and knowledgeable luxury agent. She knows what she's doing. She's
Exactly.
yeah.
Same building, different view. No, I was just seeing like, but hey, congrats.
thank you, Donna. Thank you. Thank you very much, Robert.
Awesome. Marlene. Thank you, Christine.
Okay. I sort of like the idea of dropping off a packet, an expired packet at their home, which, I think I like that idea also. But then I was wondering, when do you make the phone call to them? If you drop it off first thing in the morning, when do you call? Do you call later in that day? You're no longer the first one who's calling.
Yeah, so I've done this both ways, and I can tell you which way works better. My packages in the beginning, my packages arrived before my phone call did, and that was far less effective than my packages following my phone call. So I encourage you to phone first and then follow up with some sort of deliverable second, whether it's later that day or it's truly in the mail and arrives the following day. Know when it's going to arrive so that you can then dial again that afternoon or evening after they've received it. You don't want it to sit in their house for a week before you call them again, because the whole idea of following up with something, a deliverable, is name and name recognition and the tangible aspect of what they received, right? So now you're top of mind, you're in their hands, and you make the phone call. There's much more.
But that would mean that you didn't get the appointment on that initial call when you called, right?
That's correct. Yeah, either you didn't get them on the telephone, right? So I morphed my deliverables into follow-ups, in that if I called morning, noon, and night, and I didn't get them, the deliverable went out the next day. Sometimes I had deliverables if I really wanted the listing, depending on where it was. If it was my farm where I was going to fight a little harder for it, I would have and there was an opportunity to get the deliverable out same day. I would still call morning, noon, and night. Sometimes I would call morning, noon, the deliverable would go out right after lunch, and then I'd call again night, and they'd have received it, and we had a conversation. Or sometimes I call noon, the deliverable was already out for delivery, right? I'd call noon, I'd get somebody, I'd get the appointment, and then they'd hang up with me and my deliverable would arrive. So the timing of it starts to get really brilliant, right? Even though it wasn't me being brilliant, it was kind of serendipity. But when you have a system in place to get those deliverables out the door, which means you have a whole bunch of them done, you're going to not get a whole bunch of people on the telephone, and you're going to have a system to get them into people's hands. It's funny when all those systems are in place, you seem to get way luckier, right? Imagine that, because all of a sudden it's not just, gee, I hope the universe helps me out here. You've got a system around that. So I've tried in the beginning, I think I was keeping the US Postal Service afloat for a while there, because I was doing a lot of mailing without calling first. And that it's more like hitting the lottery. It's like buying the scratch offs, right? You're sending stuff out and you're waiting for someone to say, wow, this is neat, I'm going to call. And did I get listings that way? Yes, I did. Did I get more listings when I would call first and then send a package for follow-up and then call again after delivery? Yes, I did. Does that answer that?
Yeah, it answered it. The other, since I'm new to the company, when do we start to focus on, what is going to be in that packet, whether it be for listing, expired, buyer, who and when do we get that information together?
Yeah, so we made a short list together yesterday on a fast short list about what was in my packages, right? The answer to your question is, as we move late today into tomorrow into the buy side, and then next week into the list side, I will show you where the buyer packages are. They're all in Command. They're all in Designs in Command, available to you for customization. But the foundational stuff is all available in Command. And I'll show you where to look for all of that, including some other opportunities for pre-listing packages. Because for me, the expired follow-up was just my pre-listing package tweaked, right? So I built the pre-listing package again, which we'll talk about next week. And then I just tweaked the pre-listing package. So it's coming is the answer.
Okay.
Right, and or be sure that you're on a designs call with Joe McHugh at 11:30 each day. He does a different piece of Command. One of those will be designs. I'm not sure where we are in his rotation right now, but the design session with Joe McHugh at 11:30 Monday through Thursday. So
He
point
just
you in
did
the
it.
direction.
I'm sorry to interrupt. He just did it today, Rick.
Oh, okay, excellent. So that'll come around again in rotation.
But hey, I'll send you a link, Marlene. He sent me a link to all his videos on the YouTube channel that they have. So if you post your email on the chat,
Okay.
I could forward you that link. Yeah, he's great, and he has all the videos in one place.
Yeah, so Robert, do me a favor, just post the link in the chat if you would. That way everyone has access to it. That'd be brilliant. Thank you very much. All righty. All right, so anything else from expireds? Any questions, additional questions that you had? Anything else you wanted to share or comment on? Barbara?
Well, I find a lot of numbers looking up the addresses through the government vision system. And so I can call them that way. And then what I've started to do is then go knock on the door a few days later and just introduce myself.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And talk about that, Barbara. How is that? Is it scary? Have you gotten over it? Do you bring something? Do you leave a little something?
Well, I used to just bring my card and introduce myself. And now after yesterday, I've created a card that has the same questions that you asked on the phone, kind of like pointing that out on a postcard, obviously they had someplace to go and they weren't able to do it in the time they wanted to do it. And are they still interested in pursuing it? Love to help them get there, that kind of thing.
I love it.
So if I don't have a big conversation with them, at least I'm leaving something with them that lets them know that I kind of understand what they might be thinking.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. I love that approach, right? I love the proactivity that Barbara just gave us of, you know what, if I can't get them on the phone, I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to drive to their house. To me, I think that's if you're caring about somebody, that's care at a really high level. I tried you on the phone once, I tried you on the phone twice. Now I'm going to drive over and ring your doorbell. Hey, tried to reach you.
I don't think it's the same as soliciting because it's only one person at a time, and they did have their house on the market, so I feel a lot more comfortable that way.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're doing that. It's funny. I can remember a couple of years ago, I had somebody in this class who came to me who said in a kind of download session after we had a conversation around expireds, and he said, Rick, I feel a little bit embarrassed. I said, well, what's up? And he said, well, we had this whole conversation about calling expireds and whatnot, and I just didn't feel comfortable making a phone call to an expired, but I kind of wanted to try it. So I did just get in the car and I drove to somebody's house. And I said, well, that's awesome. Like, how did that go? He said, well, I was a little bit nervous about it, but I kind of used the same scripts. And I said, well, walk us through it. Where did you go? He said, well, that was the other thing, is that, I just wasn't sure exactly what the right thing to do was, because the property I wanted to list was like a $1.8 million house in wherever it was, in New Canaan or something like that. So I didn't know if I needed, additional like fancy stuff or whatever. So, all right, well, keep talking. He said, so I just drove to the house and I kind of rang the doorbell and I told them who I was, and I went through the script. I just went through the script in person. They invited me in. They asked if I wanted coffee or tea. We sat down, we had a 20-minute conversation about what they were looking to accomplish in terms of their real estate goals. And I think I'm going back tomorrow to list the property. So I just wondered, did I do anything wrong? I thought, okay, did you do anything wrong? I think you did just about everything right. I think maybe next time I'm going to have you have the conversation with everybody about what to do with expireds, because, you know, bing, bam, boom. This is a brand new agent, right? And that's the beauty of not bringing judgment to the table. It's the beauty of, well, you know, no one told me I couldn't or shouldn't do it this way, so I'll just go do that. 1.8 or 1.9 in New Canaan. Just walked up to the front door. Hey, I saw that you were on the market and didn't sell. How can I help? Again, invited in, 20-minute conversation, went back the next day, listed the property. So again, be careful that you're not making this harder than it has to be, because it's not hard.
Rick, I have a scenario that happened to me. And I probably could have gotten the listing, but what happened is I had a buyer who was looking in a specific area and couldn't find anything. So I wound up calling the expired, obviously to see if I can get the listing or if they were relisting so that my buyer can get the property. And what wound up happening is, you know, I basically, you know, kind of got the guy, you know, I think I was talking with someone about that, getting a compensation thing, you know, to, all right, if you, you know, kind of like, I'm not necessarily looking, or I don't know if I'm going to relist it. You know, I'm kind of, you know, didn't have, and I started asking questions about a little bit about, you know, why they thought it didn't sell, etc. And they didn't sound like they were that happy with their, you know, agent and all, obviously, because it didn't sell. But, you know, so I went back, and then when I called him again, you know, about the buyer, he unfortunately didn't live, you know, in the home and didn't live in the area. So at that point, he was like, you know, I really, you know, I can't let you, you know, just go into the house. I'd have to have, you know, the previous listing agent show it and all. And, you know, at that point, I really was just focused on my buyer. I didn't want to get greedy. So that's what we wound up doing. He wound up, you know, I don't even think the agent really realized it, but he wound up, obviously, he didn't officially list it with the agent, but he had the agent show me. The way I got his phone number and the way I contacted him was, you know, on the property, it has the tax record and has their names. So I just did that. I just Googled and I got the guy's phone number. So yeah, I mean, talk about, like, you know, first experiences. It was pretty, you know, I was kind of startled a little, you know. In retrospect, though, unfortunately, you know, after a lot of back and forth, the buyers didn't want the property. I'm curious if you would have, you know, how you would handle it if you, that's another reason I'm just saying sometimes you can call it expires if you do have a buyer. I don't know if that, I wasn't on the call yesterday either. And you can maybe even, you know, double dip and get, not only get a listing, but have your buyer too. And like I say, if it doesn't work out, you got the listing, and now you got to find your buyer another home too.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, just recognize that those kinds of things happen all the time, right? There are some people when you're searching for your buyers, sometimes you're uncovering potential properties for your buyers where you may only get paid on one side, right? Remember that if you're not listing you don't have to list the property in order to create a transaction with a seller. Sometimes sellers go back to previous listing agents. That happens sometimes, right? Sometimes there's a conversation that says that, you know, if they're no longer connected officially with an agent, a brokerage, right? You can offer them a deal to be represented on both sides by you, right? So then they're just paying X and instead of X plus, because there's not two agents involved. So you could always have that conversation, and you could always go back to the buyers if remember, it's not a property that's on the market. So if you have a signed buyer, if you have a property that's not officially on the MLS, your fee for that is stated in our buyer agreement is 5%. And so you have an opportunity then to negotiate with the buyer if in fact there's room to do so. If either the seller is not going to pay it or the seller is going to pay only a % or two, you always have an opportunity to go back to the buyer. So there's lots of different ways these things can go. There's not really a right or wrong path. just, I want you to remember is you have lots of different choices in terms of how you can and should be compensated. I don't encourage one of those paths being pro bono work, right? I just don't encourage that. And it's too easy to say, well, I'll just do that to be nice, right? You're not running a nonprofit, right? Your business is in business to earn a profit. And your time and your skill is valuable, and it's worth what you choose it to be worth, right? To just be careful about conceding on that. I think it's, again, remember, we talked about this last week, the idea that something is better than nothing is usually not the case. Most of the time, that's not the case. And so be careful we're not approaching this from that mindset. And to Ronnie's point, sometimes it's about the buyers. It's not about the listing. If you're searching for buyers, you're not necessarily going to represent the seller and the buyer. It doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes it can, and oftentimes it doesn't. All righty. The last thing I wanted to just mention with regards to expireds are old expireds, because that's another opportunity that you have, right? We've spent most of our time on current expireds. You do have an opportunity to go back into the MLS and see properties that have not sold that were on the market 6 months ago, or 2 months ago, or 12 months ago, or 3 years ago, or 10 years ago, right? You have those opportunities to run those lists to see who's tried to be a seller over a certain period of time and did not succeed. We talked a little bit about that yesterday with regards to using that information. I think Jessica mentioned it, right? With regards to going back in time and trying to find houses for the buyer clients that she's working with. However, you also have an opportunity to have conversations with those potential sellers to make sure that they understand where the market currently is. Right? If they didn't succeed last time, what do we know about a property not selling? What's the only reason a house doesn't sell? Right?
Price.
That's exactly right. So if price is the only reason that a house doesn't sell, what we know about all those expireds is that they all had a pricing issue, which means they were positioned higher than what the market was currently at that moment in time that they were on calling for. Well, considering the market right now is higher than it's been in like ever, is it possible that they might be able to obtain a number that they thought they could obtain last year or 2 years ago or 5 years ago today? And if so, are they interested in being a seller again? Because you may be able to create some positive results for them that they didn't get the last time. Right, and so the conversation is slightly different with an old expired, right? Because oftentimes there's not urgency to move because they weren't on the market, right? If there was some urgency, they would have been on the market and be more of a current expired. If you're calling someone who had a house on the market 3 years ago, that urgency isn't there anymore. And so the conversation goes a little bit differently in that you could call and say, hey, this is Rick Scott with Keller Williams Realty. I saw that you were on the market back in 2019 and did not sell. I'm curious, have you stayed up with what's going on in the marketplace for sellers? Would it be worth a few minutes of your time to have a conversation about the potential value of your home in today's market? Would it surprise you to know that your home may be worth way more than you think? And I'm curious, if your home was worth enough, would that perhaps cause you to decide to be a seller again? Right? It's just a slightly different conversation. You're just kind of going back in time saying, hey, I saw you did that, it didn't work. The market is probably in the best place right now for you to be able to recover. Does it make sense for us to have a conversation around that? You could combine that with one of those equity analyses, right? I would do the equity analysis and then call the old expired. hey, you know what, I was just doing some work and your house came up. I noticed that you were on the market 3 or 4 years ago. I did a quick equity analysis that I'd love to share with you. Is there an email address I can take to get this information to you? And could we schedule maybe a 15-minute follow-up for later today? Would you be surprised to know that homes today are worth more than they have been, certainly in the last decade or so? Could that be a benefit to you? Yes, Jonathan.
Hey, how you doing? This might be a dumb question. I'm a fresh out the womb agent, literally passed my PSI test a week ago.
No such thing as dumb questions.
My question was, where would I get the most accurate information on how the market is doing?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I agree with Erica that there is no such thing as a dumb question, right? If you don't know the answer, there's opportunity to just simply ask it. And so the answer to where do you get the most up-to-date information on market conditions, what's going on, would be the MLS, right? You have access to live data in the MLS. I do a class typically once a month called Know Your Numbers, which is someplace I will show you in the MLS and on Broker Metrics where to find and how to calculate the market data. We'll have another one of those coming up, likely the first or second week of February. So tune in for that. Watch that for the calendar. The February calendar should be out by tomorrow afternoon, and we'll simply walk you through all of that. But the MLS is really the best place to gather the data that you need to understand how the market's moving.
Right, got it. Thank you. I just actually just paid whatever I had to pay to get into the MLS today. So look forward to getting that knowledge. Excellent,
excellent, excellent. Donna.
And here's what I wanted to share on that. I was just in a conversation about this today. So knowing the market, interpreting the market, that's our job. And yeah, you'll get the most current and up-to-date information about whatever market you're in by going to the MLS and studying it. Don't just go there every now and then. Really follow it and try to figure out what are the trends, what market's moving. Ask yourself these questions so that then you have the information to share with your clients because you deeply understand it. You're not just handing them over a graph. You actually know what you're talking about. I get a little hot under the collar about this because this is our job, folks. Marketing and all that, that's great. But interpreting the market for our clients is our job. We should be studying those stats on a very regular basis.
Yeah, you need to be a student of the market, right? In order to be able to guide and teach that information, you need to first be a student of it so that you can then turn it around with the clients and help guide them through it. Remember, the definition of what we do for a living is interpret current conditions, right? Also read interpret current market conditions such that the client can make the best business decision possible, right? It is true that oftentimes people think that our value proposition, we're the ones that get people on the MLS and take all the pretty pictures and run the ads and do whatever. Here's what's interesting. Pretty much every agent does that, right? That's not what sets you apart. It's not the pretty pictures and the glossy magazines that set you apart from your competition. What can set you apart is expertise in market knowledge, is really being that local economist of choice. Understand not only what it's doing, but understand why it's doing that, right? So it's not just a matter of here are the numbers. Well, what's driving that? What are employment rates? What's happening in the state? What's happening in the county? What decisions are being made by local governments that might be driving things? Which of the big companies are coming in? Which of the big companies are going out, right? How is that affecting the supply and demand, right? Clearly for the last almost 2 years, or the last 18 months or so, right, we've had external conditions creating a run on our inventory in much of the lower part of the state. Right, so understanding what drives all of that's all helping interpretation of those numbers. It's not just a matter of saying, here's the number. Yes, Donna.
And yeah, and don't be afraid to have an opinion. Know it so well that you actually have an opinion about what's happening and why it's happening, based in fact. That's really going to help you guide them at the table when you're consulting, when you're showing up as the expert. The thing that sets you apart from them, from everyone else, is the knowledge with which you speak, which means, yeah, you may be slightly off, but economists are off all, they're like, that it's a guess. It's retrospectively, we're looking back to predict the future, but you can find a trend line. You can have an opinion about it and you can share it. If this happens, I think what's going to happen is the following, based on the facts and the fact that you've been studying the market over several cycles.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. Remember that people who predict the weather are wrong more than they're right. And they still show up to work and get paid. And they do the same thing. They look backwards to predict what's going forward. And without a crystal ball, it's impossible to be right 100% of the time. And yet you can start to extrapolate information and draw conclusions from that information, logical, fact-based conclusions. Which is different, by the way, than wild ass guesses, right? Donna didn't say just offer a wild ass guess. She said draw conclusions based in fact, right? Two very different things. I just wanted to draw a little line under that just in case. John Mendez.
I say pick something for this is also geared towards like more new agents. Like there's a bunch of like different information sources that are going to be thrown at you. Pick one thing and just use it and get good with that, and then get around other smart people that say smart things, and then kind of repeat what they're saying to other people so that you look like the smart guy or girl.
Yeah, that's right. You got it. Remember, you are typically some version of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or the 5 people you spend the most time listening to, right? So who are those 5 for you? One of the best things I think I've ever learned is that if you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? Go find a different room. Find a room where like 4 or 5 people around you, you're like, oh man, I feel way out of my league here. Good, that's where you want to be, because that's where you'll learn, right? That's where learning happens. That's where learning happens. I have a quick story. Brian Fair is the regional operating partner for our region, right? He has my role for the region, right? I'm the operating partner for our market centers. He's the operating partner for our region, which is the New York tri-state region. And he told us this great story a couple of years ago. He had just joined this like wealth club. He had just joined this this group of people, wealthy individuals. He said, Brian doesn't do terribly badly for himself. He owns 8 or 9 market centers. He owns our region. He still has a sales team, I believe, that operates listing and selling real estate. He doesn't do badly. And what he said to us was, I joined this group, and I was like low man on the totem pole. I was the pauper of the bunch, right? And he went on to tell us that the reason he did it was because he started to feel like in his world, he was the one who was kind of doling out the information about what he was doing with his money, how he was investing it, what the returns were, what opportunities looked like. And he wanted to put himself in a different environment where he was surrounding himself with people who had way more than he did, so that he could look around and say, okay, well, you were all where I was once. How did you get there? What steps did you take to bring you there? And one of the exercises they asked him to do, because everybody apparently, they met weekly, I guess. And so there's 10 of them in the room. So once every 10 weeks, you got to do what was called a portfolio defense. And what that means is your personal balance sheet gets put on the overhead projector, gets put on the screen, for everybody to kind of look at and review and ask questions about. It's like, okay, so your cash position there, like, why is that in cash? Why did you, okay, what does that mean? Why did you buy that? Explain to me what this investment is for and what the return has been. How long have you owned that? What are the tax benefits for that one? So it's literally like stepping out of the shower with not a stitch of clothing on into a business meeting and just kind of standing there saying, okay, pick it apart. Tell me the good, the bad, and the in-between. Right? Financially, it's that same concept. And what he said is he was nervous about doing his first one, but we asked him the next time we saw him, so how did that go? And he said, you know what, I learned more from literally stepping out just kind of financially naked in front of people who knew and understood more than I did, and listening to the questions that they asked me about my own financial scenario, about my own personal balance sheet. Said some of the questions I knew answers to, some of the questions I thought I knew answers to, but the way they asked them, I maybe didn't know the answers I thought I did. And some of them I just didn't know the answers to. But they got to have a conversation then around what their thoughts were. What's my point? My point is, it's just another example of, if you feel like you're the smartest person in the room, well, go find a new room. Start hanging out with different people. Find the smart people, find the people who are operating at the level that you want to achieve at, and just start asking them questions. Take them out to lunch, have an omelet with them on Saturday morning. Do the things that they're doing, because success leaves clues, right? Okie dokie, let's charge forward. So here's what I'd like to do today. What I would like to do is, I'd like to run through farming, and I'd like to run through agent-to-agent referral networks. And then what I'd like to do, because we will then have covered kind of the main sources of business for real estate agents. Then I'd like to, well, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you what I'll do next, because it may have some of you make different decisions. So I'll keep that a little bit of a secret. Stay tuned, because we're going to do something fun. So let's talk quickly about farming. What is farming? When I say farming, what does that mean?
It's to pick a neighborhood and send them like emails, mails, postcards, whatever you pick.
Yeah, so farming ultimately is a marketing program that you're going to structure and then deliver over time. What Robert just said was, you're going to pick a neighborhood or two or three, right? A certain number of homes. That would be geographic farming. There's also demographic farming. You could decide to run a report or buy a list of all the seniors, anyone over, what's AARP age now? I think it's way younger than.
I think it's 55.
Yeah, so maybe you find that out, or maybe you want to find out people 65 and older or 70 and older, because they may be downsizing or whatever, right? So there's different versions of farming. You may decide that you're going to focus on non-owner occupied properties, because they are landlords, and those landlords may be looking to sell their properties if they're not interested in selling any longer. You may decide that you're looking to focus on renters, right? And so you're going to start farming into condo complexes, searching for first-time home buyers. You get my point, right? Lots of different versions of farming. You just have to choose what makes the best sense for you. And then we're going to talk about what that structure looks like. Go ahead, Robert, you have a question?
If you farm for age or ages, it doesn't do anything with you getting in trouble, like, redlining certain ages or picking certain ages or anything like that. Like, how
No.
you can't, no?
Yeah, I know where you're going. Where you're going is are fair housing issues, right? Because you can't discriminate based on age. However, all you're doing is looking for opportunity for buyers or sellers based on the probability of them needing to sell based on their age. Those two things are two separate things. Thank you for asking it, because it's a smart question. They're two separate things. What you can't do is decide that someone of a certain age, either young or older, is unqualified or somehow invalidated from purchasing a home or leasing a home simply because of their age, right? That falls on the fair housing side. However, seeking out a potential business, you don't have that same issue. Okay. So the idea of let's just take geographic farming, right? Donna says there's a NAR designation, which is expertise with seniors, right? I think it's SRES, I think, right? SRES, right? Which stands for something that has to do with seniors. So there are lots of different NAR
Specialists, yeah, you're right. Yes, senior real estate specialists. It should be S on the end.
There we go. So let's just take a geographic farm, just for fun and giggles. A geographic farm is determined by 2 to 4 or 500 homes in a certain area. You can choose a condo complex that's near you because it's all kind of in one community. You can choose to just kind of dominate that condo complex. Some people choose the 200 to 400 houses around where they live, right? Because they might have more relationships there. So they're thinking if they're in my database anyway, and I incorporate them into a farm, it's just more contact with those people who again, maybe aren't my friends, but I know who they are because I live close to them. I think I told you I chose my farm when I was new in the business based on looking around and saying, okay, well, where do I think that there's less competition? And so I chose to move my farm up into North Ridgefield and on busy streets in that town, so that I got 450 or 500 people out of places where I knew other agents weren't spending too much marketing dollars. A year or two later, I got aggressive. I think I told you the story. My brother bought a house in an area in Norwalk, and there was this one agent, Gabriella something or other, who was dominant in that neighborhood. And I thought, well, I now just moved family into this neighborhood, so I think it's time for you to go. Right. And so I decided I was going to begin to dominate that neighborhood. And so I started to farm the 400 or so homes there. I was looking to make my way into that based on the one sale that I had just made in that little area in Norwalk. Right. So you can choose based on lots of different criteria. And then you just create a system. You create a program. You can hire this out or not. And what I mean by that is you don't have to create the postcards and stamp the postcards or handwrite the postcards, or I can tell you, I did a lot of that in my early days, right? I did a lot of buy the postcards, run the stickers, do all the stickers on the postcards, stamp them all with the bulk mail indicia, because nobody told me you could have them printed with the bulk mail indicia on it already, right? So you get bulk mail rates. I did that for a while until I found a company that would do all that work for me, carrier route my entire mailing, charge me 5 cents per label to do all that work. And by doing all the work, save me 12 cents a label on the actual postage. So it was like they were paying me to do all the work for me. So make sure that you explore all the different opportunities that you have out there. Because sometimes not doing it DIY actually costs you less money and gets you better results, right? And so the idea of, and John, is that you raising your hand? Yes, sir.
So I haven't gotten around to watching the video just yet, but I know there's a video on Prism. I just want to ask you, like, what are your thoughts on Prism? Have you personally used them? Because I heard a lot of good things about them.
Yeah, so have I personally used them? No. Has my sales team? Yes. I think some people on this call have used them as well for postcards. It's really they're a great company. The process is quite simple, which is what I like about it, because you just literally you draw a line around you draw a circle around the area you want to farm to, and just tell them what to do and when to do it, and they just go ahead and do it all for you. Right? That's a far better use of your time than ordering 1,000 postcards and running the labels and figuring it all. Yeah, it's what I would say to you is spend the extra time lead generating for more appointments and use your money to leverage that time and get those things out. I do think Prism is a great company for that. We're looking at another marketing add-on for you that we'll likely be able to announce in a week or so that I think is really powerful for a lot of things. I think Prism is still the path I would go, even though this new add-on is going to be really powerful. The postcarding process that Prism brings to the table is superior to anything else I've seen. So again, it's why we're gonna add on whatever we need. If it's one company for this and another company for that, we're gonna go with those kinds of add-ons until we have everything that makes things simple for you. So I hope that answers the question on Prism. Question I get all the time is, all right, well, what does that look like? Well, a farm ultimately is a 12 direct, right? So if you've read the MREA, where did my red book go? Here we go. If you've read the MREA, the conversation inside of the lead generation model, the same one where we talk about the 36 touch, which is pages 145 through 148. At the bottom of 148 in the red book, Gary talks about the 12 direct program. And it is exactly what it sounds. 12 direct is 12 mailings over 12 months. Right? So you're just simply creating an opportunity to mail something to these folks one time a month. Here's what I would tell you. Make sure it's real estate related. Right? We've said it before. Please don't send a new puff pastry recipe each month. Right? We don't need pictures of you know the kitty cats that you saved with your commission dollars, or the, you know, it needs to be real estate related. That's what people are looking for. Unless you also own a bakery. If you also own a bakery and you're looking to advertise for the bakery, well, then send recipes about puff pastry. That's fine. But if you want people to be reminded of you and real estate and in the same thought and speak about you in the same breath, you've got to combine those things. Yes, Donna says, please don't tell me when to turn my clock back, right? Because here's what's interesting. With atomic clocks and your cell phone, nobody even needs that anymore, right? The only thing you have to do is remember to set the damn thing in the car. And even some cars now are automatic. That and the one on the freaking stove. Do you ever notice that? That one's the one that I always forget about. What's the point? Make it real estate related. Market statistics are always a winner. Tips about how you stage a home are always a winner. Maybe a resource about connecting with a vendor for a certain something or other, always a winner. Events, things that you mail out for events. One of the things that we do in my sales team is, Debbie mentioned that shredding event that we do every year. Well, that goes to our farm as well, right? It's not just our database. We send that to our farm. It's a postcard that goes to all of those people because we want people in our farm who we don't know to show up at our shredding event with a big box of stuff they want to shred so we can talk to them and meet them, move them from the outside of people we don't know to the inside of people we do know, right? So some of those events are really powerful for follow-up inside for conversion from haven't mets to mets. Hey, let me take a quick aside. One of the things I forgot to say about expireds, let me just insert that here because it's relevant to where we're at. One of the things that I always did with my expireds is I kept a database of anyone who I either connected with and spoke to that didn't give me an appointment or that I didn't ever speak to, who went through my follow-up plan and got my stuff, right? No communication. I kept all of those people in a database, in my database, tagged as expireds. And whenever I held an event, I invited all of the expireds to my events every single time. Here's what was powerful about that. I can, in the old days, pre-pandemic, the Ridgefield Market Center every year to celebrate the holiday stroll, which is something that downtown Ridgefield does each year. All the vendors stay open late and everyone goes up and down Main Street, and there's parties and there's booze and there's food and there's ice sculptures and carriage rides and all this stuff. And so we each year had a big party in our offices, right? There were like 600 people in our offices over a course of 3 hours. It was a huge party. And what I used to do is not only invite our database as a thank you, I would invite expireds. And I can tell you, one year I had not one, but 2 of those expireds show up to the party, ask for me by name because they got invited to this party. I had no idea who they were, right? I didn't memorize all the names of my expireds. I had hundreds of them. Met them in the hallway with 500 other people walking all around us and had them say this to me. Hi, I'm John Smith. You may not remember me. However, I had a house at 123 Main Street that didn't sell. I got your invite to come here tonight. I wanted to just come and say thank you so much. And oh, by the way, I wondered if it was possible for us to sit down and have a conversation about getting my house back on the market. This guy's house hadn't been on the market for 3 years. 3 years. But every year I invited him to my events. He just became part of my known database, right? That over time, when the time was right for him to become a seller, he just happened to get a postcard in the mail from me saying, hey, come to this party. So he said, okay. That night, somebody else arrived from my expireds as well. 2 in that one evening. One listed, one did not. One just wanted to talk to me and say thank you so much for inviting me. He wasn't interested in listing. But one of them was a new listing for me, right? You see how that works? It's why having these systems in place is so important, because every single time you have a new connection with somebody, whether it's an expired or someone you meet at an open house or someone that just moved in next door, right? Any new connection point for you, you put them in your database and you put them into these existing systems that then do the work of connection for you. Of course, adding your 4 times a year of personal calls in, that then comes back to reward you with business, short-term and long-term. All right, so I know that was a little bit of bunny trail, but I wanted to just mention that because I meant to mention it with expireds, that you should keep them in your database and follow up with them, right? Because just because they're not interested in being a seller today doesn't mean that 2 years from now or 18 months from now or 4 months from now or a week and a half from now, after they've calmed down about their failure and they like screw their head back on, they wake up and say, you know what, the hell with this. I am not going to let the market or whatever win. I am going to get this back on the market. And you're the one now who had made the phone calls, delivered the information. You've been the one following up. You see the point, right? So any questions about, so make back into farming, make them real estate specific. I personally believe that they should exhibit a pattern of success for you. Which means Brett did it again. Brett did it again. Brett did it again. Right? Here's some market stats. And oh, by the way, Brett did it again. Look, I sold another house. Look, I sold another house. I used to do a postcard 4 times a year, right? That highlighted all the different properties that I had sold in the previous quarter, right? The one that went out in September was look what Rick did on his summer vacation. Right. So it was like, I just tried to make them timely, make them connected to what was going on seasonally. The one at the end of the year was, wanting to express gratitude during the holiday season for everybody who I've been able to assist buying, selling, or creating wealth by investing in real estate in 2021. But you see, you make them relate them to what we do. Make it about houses, make it about stats, make it about tips and tricks for it being in the business, so that you constantly remind them that when it comes to real estate, you are the person they should call. Once a month is a minimum. If you can stomach it in terms of the pocketbook, I like twice a month. But once a month is a 12 direct. Twice a month is just twice as good, right? More than that, it's probably overkill. But anywhere from 12 to 24 touches in a year to a specific database makes good sense. Now, here's the most important part, and Robert, I will get to your question in just half a second. Here's the most important part. Don't waste your money doing farming if you're not also going to follow it up with either door knocking or calling behind what you send. Nobody ever got rich in real estate by simply mailing postcards and waiting for the world to call them. It's never happened, not one time in the history of Earth, right? Because think about it, if it was that easy, why wouldn't everyone just do that? So it just doesn't work that way. If you're going to spend the time, effort, and money to get in people's mailboxes, you need to now figure out a way to get lists around how you connect with those people via telephone and call behind what you're sending. I like 3 to 4 times a year calling behind what you're sending. So you're doing it quarterly in your database. You might as well be doing it quarterly in your farm. And remember, it's just a simple phone call. Hey, it's Rick Scott. I just wanted to touch base. My hope is that you've been receiving market-driven information about your home from me in the past few months. Wanted to just call and check in and see if you had any questions about the market or anything about any resources I might be able to provide for you. No, I think we're all set. That's awesome. You know what? I can't wait to send you the next update. I think you're going to be really excited about what values are doing in your neighborhood. You have an awesome weekend. Bye. Right. Again, these are not difficult conversations to be had. And what you're looking for is for the one that says, hey, before you go, can you tell me about that you just said, a big appreciation. And your answer is, yeah, of course. I'm curious. Why do you ask? Because remember, it's not about giving the information. It's about finding out what their needs are. So why do you ask? Well, I'm kind of curious. I think we're just getting to that point where maybe getting this house on the market makes sense. Understood. It seems to me that we might be better served by having a fast face-to-face, 20 to 30 minutes. I can actually do some research on your home specifically and give you better data. I have some time to do that later this afternoon, and we can reconnect maybe this evening or first thing tomorrow. Do either of those times work, right? And you pivot now to an appointment. Please note what I didn't do was say, oh, what do you want to know? Hold on, let me open all my books and have this whole appointment with you on the telephone. That's not a win, right? Again, you're far more powerful in person. And it's not a win for them because they want data from you, from the powerful you. They want you to do the research. They don't want this off the top of your head, right? So it's a win for everybody if we pivot to that appointment and then get them what they need, high level, right? All right, there were questions. Robert, you had a question and you waited very patiently, and I think, Brett, you have something as well. Go ahead, Robert.
No, I think you answered it, Rick. I was going to ask, what is the 12-step program with the REC program and the 12 touches or 24 touches?
Yes.
So I think you answered that. So that's a smart plan, right? That's what you mean?
So you can certainly make it a smart plan, right? There's probably smart plans that are 12 directs already, right? And that smart plan in command would then remind you, you're going to either work in designs, and that's all going to go out kind of as the smart plan says, or you're going to use a smart plan to remind you it's time to get that next one out, right? You can use it either way.
Okay. That's what you're saying. Perfect. Thank you.
Brett, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say on my way back from town today, I've been noticing at this house up the street in my farm has had some construction and contractor vans and this truck and that truck, like for the last couple of weeks. So I feel like going and knocking on their door.
Yeah,
mean,
brilliant.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. I think that's very
Yeah.
smart, right? And here's what's interesting about what Brett said. That's that next level of, okay, I'm going to delineate this is my farm. Are you planting a flag there? Are you taking a stand for making sure that the real estate services that are provided for those people are going to come from you? Because when you do, you start noticing things like Brett noticed. You drive past it and say, you know what? They're cleaning up the whole front yard. They've got trucks there. I've noticed that. Maybe they're looking to sell, right? And so therefore you stop on your way home and knock on the door, or you find a telephone number, you give them a call, whichever, right? You could also send them a letter. Each of them, none of them is wrong. Each of them though is a little bit further removed from the immediacy of the contact, right? And so if you send them a letter and it takes you 3 days to write the letter and get it in the mail, it takes 2 days to get to them, and then they open it the next day. Well, maybe they just listed 3 days ago, where if you just went to the front door, you might have had an opportunity, right? Because you just don't know where anybody is in that process. I love that idea. So that's kind of the idea behind farming. John, is that a new hand? Yes, sir.
So like another one of the main topics in the red book is report like playing red light, green light with your expenses. And most things in real estate is like delayed gratification, but like farming is like very delayed gratification. And I'm still in the phase where like I'm incurring a lot of costs because I still haven't done a lot of business yet. So it's like I'm kind of conflicted as to, do I start now and just ride it out, or do I wait till I close on some transaction and have the money? Because I still have a second job that supplements the stuff that I'm doing now.
Right. So you ask a great question, and here's how I'll answer that, right? I won't answer that personally for you, simply because the real answer is it depends, right? It depends on how each of you today exists with your current financial scenarios and what your finances look like for the 12 months ahead, right? So that's going to be different for each of you. I'll answer it this way, however. I used to teach a long time ago, I used to teach the idea that when you start a business, most businesses need seed money to get started, right? There's either if you're looking for investors in your business, you run a round of fundraising to see who's going to invest in your concept and your idea, or you save money and then you go ahead and open this business. I don't personally think that real estate is much different, right? Because to John's point, okay, so we're learning all these things and a number of them cost money. Yes, that is 100% true. And it's, to me, you get further faster, not by spending more. This is not me saying throw money at your issues, right? It's not me saying spend first, because I do very much believe in red light, green light. I run every single one of my businesses the exact same way. However, what I've learned over time is there is a difference between an expense and an investment. And what you have to do is look at the two things differently. Am I spending this money just to spend it? Versus am I spending this money and expecting a return, right? I'll use, just because John asked the question and I happen to know he's traveling to Orlando with us and we had a conversation about family reunion to start this. So I'll use that as an example, right? John made a decision to go to family reunion on site in Orlando, right? That's not an inexpensive proposition, right? The registration costs $1,000. For some reason, airfare also seems to cost $1 bazillion to Orlando. I don't know what's happening in Orlando that weekend, but usually you can get to Orlando for $272. This time it's triple that. At any rate, right? And then of course there's a hotel, and even if you share a hotel for 4 nights or so, you're still talking another $500 or so, and then you have to eat, right? And so there's money that gets spent. But my bet, without having had a conversation with John about that decision beforehand, my bet is that he's looking at that as an investment in himself, as an investment in his business. He's going to spend that, but he expects X in return based on who he's going to meet, who he's going to hang out with, what he's going to learn, and then the promise of implementation based on what he learns once he gets back. Do I have that right, John?
Hit it right on the money.
Right? And so there is a difference between expense and investment. The line sometimes is a little unclear, and it's easy to push expenses over the line into, no, it's an investment for later. I one time had hold on, I'm just going to push pause on recording. I don't want this on YouTube. Does that make sense to everybody? Difference between expenses and investment. And from a farming perspective, John, since you brought it up in context of starting a farm, the answer is, for you today, the farm may be like, well, you know what, it's going to be X more dollars a month. It is an investment in my business for the future, because when I do the right things with that farm over the course of 6 or 12 months, and then certainly in year 2 and year 3, I'm going to reap the rewards of all of that. Your decision has to be, okay, what is my current financial position? Do I have the funds in place to start that today? Or am I going to set a target for, I'm going to have 3 closings first. I'm going to save 10% from each of those 3 closings, set that aside. And once I've accomplished that, I'm going to start my farm. Neither one of them is the wrong answer. It just depends on where you currently are financially. Does that help?
Yeah, that really helps out a lot.
Okay, good. And that goes for everybody, by the way, right? Each of you has a different spot that you're in. The finances for every little box on this call are different, and so the overall answer is spend the right money the right way. However, only spend it if it's there. If it's not there, do the work, have the closings, create the funds, save the money, and then go ahead and do what you want to do, right? I told you I your team leader, well, you know what, I won't tell that story just now. I'll save that for next week. Go ahead, Moses.
So we learned quite a bit about Command, how Command has so many features that you could use, which is cost effective. For instance, if you want to do your farm, you can use design to create a postcard, and probably going to be worth maybe $18 per month. That's not a huge amount, but you can start with something small and scale up your business that way.
Great point. Excellent point. Right. So maybe if there's version A, version B, and version C, and version A only costs you that $18 a month, but you're really hot to trot on what you see with version C, right? The business owner in you then has to say, and the adult in you has to say, okay, well, you know what? I really love what C looks like. I think what I'm going to do though is start with A, get that going, create some success with it, and then upgrade to B, and then work B for a little while, and then upgrade it to C. Great point, Moses. Thank you for bringing that to us. Robert.
To be honest with you, Rick, I forgot the question. So I will be back.
Okay, sounds good.
Turn back around. Sorry about that.
No worries. Lisa.
Quick question. What if you feel like your business is at a standstill? You've pulled back on the majority of your marketing just because you don't feel like you're getting the return you should have, or even just breaking even with that investment. What would you suggest is the best way to go about trying to get some closings in, to try to build back up to a different form of marketing or farming?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what, every coach I've ever hired when I was in a similar scenario told me the exact same thing. And so when you are in a spot of, you know what, I need closings faster for whatever reason, either to pay my bills or to save for marketing or to do whatever, right? When you're in need of more efficient and effective paths to closings, the answer is always the same. It's time to dial for dollars. It's time to pick up the phone and start having conversations inside of your database, because there are opportunities inside of your database that we're just not tapping. Every single time I've been in that position, my coach has given me the exact same advice. Go to the database, go to the database, go to the database. Go to the database aggressively, go to the database less aggressively, depending on what your situation is, right? I'll tell you that after Debbie and I opened our first office in late August of 2004, that was the Ridgefield Market Center. The next 6 months, we spent a lot of time doing kind of office stuff, right? We had a team leader in place, but it was the first 6 months that the business was even open. And so we spent a lot of time in Austin with Gary and the leadership of this company, kind of learning how to run one of these suckers, doing required trainings. And our business, our listings and sales business, which, by the way, when you open a brand new brokerage, it's not like the money just starts rolling in 2 weeks later, right? It's you actually spend for the first year before anything actually shows up as return. And so our listings and sales business was still the way we were feeding our families, paying the bills. And we got to February, we got 6 months into the new market center, and we looked around, and our sales business, we had hardly anything pending. Right, I told you before that our business, we put ourselves on a salary of $10,000 each a month, and then the rest of the business cost about $10,000 a month to run. So our business cost 30 grand a month to run for us to meet payroll. And we looked in February and said, okay, so we have $17,000 in GCI pending. It's like half a month of expenses to run our sales team. And so we panicked and we got on the phone with our coach and said, what should we do? And just like every other coach had ever told us, the answer was the same, right? Who do you know that you need to be in contact with, in conversation with? And if you don't know enough people, what do you need to do to go find strangers? And we just went and did that. We got busy dialing for dollars through our database. We used the script, it was February, we used the script of, hey, it's Rick. Just wanted to connect with you, say Happy New Year. Hope everything was great for you last year. It's been a while since we connected. Listen, we have a really aggressive goal in 2022 to help 50 families buy, sell, or create wealth by investing in real estate. And I'm reaching out today to just ask for your help, because frankly, it's February and we're already a little bit behind. So I'm curious, who do you know that might be able to utilize our services? You know, someone who's looking to buy, sell, or create wealth by investing in real estate. That was our script. I said it so many times that 15 years later, I can still say it because it's just in my head. I must have dialed 500 people with that same exact script. I would ask people who came into open houses that same exact question. I would ask people I met in the grocery store that same exact question, right? Because remember, I told you, for me, real estate was how I fed my family, right? It wasn't a hobby. I needed to make money to make sure that my family could live. So the idea of not asking that question to anyone and everyone who would listen to it never crossed my mind. And here's what's fascinating. Debbie did the same thing. And in about 60 days, we had rescued our business. All of a sudden, remember I told you the story of taking the listing at a slightly lower number because the the seller met with us, went across the street, met with one of our competitors, and then came back up the stairs and said, she'll do it for less. I told you that story yesterday or the day before. That was that February. It was all the same month, right? And so we were desperate for listings. We were desperate for business. Dial, ask, and it all started to flow again. You just need to prime the pump. It's all activities. The answer to any of those questions is all in your activities. That was probably a longer answer than maybe you needed, Lisa, but that was, I hope that helps.
That was great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Carly and then Anna.
My question is, well, long story short, I got approached by a company who does, you know, the whole lead thing, and I didn't want to fall and get sucked into it. So I'm wondering, like, did you ever, or have you heard success in those, you know, lead generation companies where they say they're handing you off qualified leads?
Yeah, so are you asking about leads that you pay for, right?
Yeah, well, it's like the way that this company works, it's like $2,500 for like the year, and they give you all these leads. But I was reading reviews and people are like, the leads suck, like they're not, you know, they're not good leads. And then you have to give them 20% referral.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So personally, I think I would pass on that one, because to me,
Okay.
it's an either or. I'm either paying you for
Yeah,
those
that's what
leads,
I was thinking too.
or I'm paying you on the back end. You know, I would, nice job. I mean, nice gig if they can get someone to say yes to both ends. But
Yeah, I was not down for that.
here's my opinion. My opinion is that any company that's willing to offer you leads where you pay a referral fee on the back end, I don't think there's any reason not to just sign up and say yes to that, right? Because there's no cost up front, right?
Yeah, that's what my thought was too.
Are there companies where you pay for leads up front? You pay by zip code, or you pay a monthly fee, you do this, you know, Zillow has leads that you can buy. Do you have colleagues who pay for leads and just rake it in on those paid leads? You absolutely do, right? I can name people in both market centers that pay for leads, and they make money. They make way more than what they spend on those leads. So I'm not here to say that's a bad path to go down. What I am here to say is there are lots of other ways for you to create valid leads for yourself without having to spend that money. And the best way I know how is do what I just said in terms of like dial for dollars, like get on the phone. That's all free stuff.
Yeah.
Most of the people in our organizations who are operating with paid leads at a high level also have a structure underneath themselves. So it's not, they're not just solo, they have administrative help and they have additional team members such that they're able to round robin these things and immediately get to these leads. Oftentimes what I find is that solo agents who raise their hand for paid leads are so busy doing all the tasks that a solo agent needs to do that they're not able to get back to people quickly. And now you're flushing your money down the toilet bowl, because those kinds of paid leads, if you're not answering the phone when they ring on the second ring, they just get rerouted and get sold to somebody else who will answer the phone by the second ring.
Yeah, that was my thought too, because I mean, I had a really, really good, successful first year and I did not pay for a single lead. So I was kind of like, I don't know, like how, you know, I don't think it's for me at this point in time, but I was just curious if like you've heard of any success. But definitely my goal is to kind of build kind of a little team before getting any close to that.
Yeah, I think my personal opinion is, can it work? Yes. Does it have to, do you have to buy leads to create success? Absolutely not. Are there other ways that cost way less money or no money? Absolutely. You just have to be willing to do them. And at the same time, I'm not here to say that you should never buy leads, because some of your colleagues make it work very, very successfully. So I hate to talk out of both sides of my mouth, and yet you have to make the decisions that are right for you and your business. It's kind of like my answer to John before, right? Is that an investment or an expense? And how will you know, right? Anything. So hear this from me. and this is not just a business expense. This is Rick's financial life advice. Did I say expense? This is not business advice. This is Rick's financial life advice as well. This is a bonus for you this evening. Don't ever sign anything. Don't sign up for anything in your life without negotiating a 30-day cancellation period, right? Way too many people sign up for stuff, both in business, and realtors are notorious for it. Oh, it's only $79 a month. Oh, it's only $85 a month. Oh, it's only $106 a month, right? But then you're locked in for a year's contract and no cancellation, or a $250 cancellation fee, or whatever. My thought is, regardless of what it is, business or life, if somebody wants me to use their product badly enough, they will give me what I want, and I will negotiate to say, I will absolutely say yes to that product, but I will only say yes if you put your money where your mouth is and back it up with a 30-day exit clause. If you give me a 30-day easy out exit clause, I'll try your thing, sure, because if it's starting to work for me, I'm just going to keep saying yes. But the idea of saying yes to anything and believing that you don't have the power to have them alter their contract, that I think
Yeah,
is,
I was trying to get a 30-day, like a free 30-day trial, because they like came down on the price, but they're like, we really need an agent in that area. And I was like, listen, thanks for coming down on the price, but if it's not going to work for me, then I'm not paying, $1,800 for a year and not know if it's really going to even work for me. So if you can't give me a free trial, then like, I'm just not interested right now.
yeah, agreed.
So that's kind of where I left it.
And the other part of that is, if someone's asking you for a bunch of money up front, negotiate to say, hey, here's the deal. You know what? I will be thrilled to say yes to you. However, I'll pay that $1,800 in equal installments quarterly over the year. And I have a 30-day easy out option to cancel. So that way you're only ever in it for 30 days for the quarter that you've paid for, right? My point is, negotiate to say, I'm not giving you all of my money. I'll give you my money as you show me that this works, right? Take more of a stand when you're talking to these companies and say, you know what, you got to prove to me. And if they say, well, then we're going to go and call somebody else, then say, okay, thank you for the call. Because I guarantee you, if you haven't learned by now as a real estate agent, the next person's calling you just an hour away. So there's no shortage of people trying to sell you stuff when you're a real estate agent. Take more control of that. Be more aggressive. I swear that people stopped calling me because my name got put on a list that said, this guy is the biggest pain in the ass. Like, please just save yourself the trouble, because he's going to want this, 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 and this. And there are some companies who just won't do that. And I'm okay with that. You're not the company for me then. I always pivot the conversation back to partnership. Thank you so much for calling. I run my own companies based on partnerships with the people inside of my organization. And I like to find vendors who have the same understanding and run their businesses the same way. From a partnership perspective, here's my expectation from you. You've already given me your expectation of me. Let me give you my expectation of you. If we can't meet in the middle someplace, then that's not partnership to me. And I'm okay going and finding a vendor that I can partner with instead of someone who is not interested in partnership. Sound good? Anna.
Definitely understand, Rick, now what you say, and be hungry like when you call. And so I feel today, I don't want to call like prospectives who I don't know. I want to call somebody who I know. So I choose one person. But I really feel like I'm hungry because I'm kind of like have numbers, how many listings I want to have for February, and I need to reach 3. So I'm like, okay, and it's like average 425,000. So I'm like, okay, I'm behind because I need to work. So I called today, and it was only one person, and I approached him already 2 years. So I called him. I said, listen, here's the story. That's how we will work, and it's the best time when we can list. And he had no choice. He's like, okay. I said, okay, so let's meet, let's talk, and let's list. And he's like, oh, okay, but like I have tenants in place. I said, okay, you have two properties. You have one for 4-bedroom, four family, and another one next door, you have 2 family. So let's list first and talk about 2 family, and then we will talk about 4 family. So how much you want for one? He said, like, for one, I want 1.9, for another one, I want 900 grams. And like, okay, let's list first one. And then, so basically I will meet him this week, hopefully, finger crossed.
I love it. And so what Anna, I just typed in the chat, stand back, everyone. Anna's coming. She's got like she's taking no hostages, right? And here's the thing. What I just heard was someone who woke up in the morning and made a decision that her goals meant something. And she was going to do whatever it took to meet or exceed those goals. And so as soon as she made that decision, she herself started to sound different when she was talking to people. She's still coming from a place of care and contribution, but sometimes some of our people need some tough love. Do you ever have somebody in your family who needed some tough love, right? Sometimes tough love is a path of caring where you just say, okay, you know what, let's do this. Hey, I have an idea. It sounds like you may be hesitating. It sounds like you may be struggling with this decision. Let's do this. A, B, and C. How does that sound? Because sometimes people need you to pull them forward a little bit more aggressively, right? That's just real.
And I said to him, okay, just let me know what day I can bring my professional photographer. I'm coming. No choice.
There you go.
He's like, oh, okay.
Right. And so here's what's so spectacular about what Anna's saying, right? Did she all of a sudden become this horrible, terrible person with horns and fangs? And no, she's still bubbly, Anna, right? She's still coming from care and contribution. She just helped somebody make a decision. That's all I'm hearing. She took a stand to help this person decide to move forward. Clearly that person was looking to move forward anyway. Remember, none of you is powerful enough to make somebody do something that they don't already want to do. So all Anna did was point that out and then pull them forward, right? Yeah, as Donna said, she just stood up and she showed him that she was the one. That's all. What's interesting is maybe, who knows? I'm just spitballing here. Maybe he's been waiting for you to do that for all the time that you said that you've been attempting to get him on the market. Maybe what he was looking for was someone to call and say, you can't wait any longer for this reason, and this reason. It's actually to your detriment if your house isn't on the market. So let's just do this now. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to come over. We're going to sign the paperwork. I'm going to bring my photographer. He may have been waiting for you to behave that way because he himself needed you to show up that way for him, not for you, for him. Right? Do you see how that works? I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well done. Ronnie and then John.
Yes, no, I was just saying, I think it was Carly who was asking about the companies that send those, lead things. Just to be aware, like I had gotten something and they make you think like, oh, we're picking, just like 2 agents in the area, a Bridgefield. And, I had asked similar, I think we were on a call with Debbie. I was like, Debbie, have you ever heard? And she's like, no, I never heard of them. I was like, oh, okay, because they're saying this and that. And I was kind of asking, is that a same thing? Does that sound legit or does that sound good? And then literally like an hour after the call, she's like, Ronnie, you're not going to believe this. I got the same text. So I'm just saying beware because, they do say things and, they basically can be sending, misleading, sending it to you and sending it to, you're not so exclusive.
Yeah.
Was it set schedule or something like that?
I'd have to go back. This was like, it was probably about a month ago. But I can look.
The answer is probably, right? Because here's the thing. They're not targeting, trust me, I love each and every one of you for the value you bring to this organization. However, they're not targeting each and every one of you individually. They're targeting you off of a roster. Like that's the way that works, right? And they make you feel really important. And what Ronnie said is that fear of missing out, right? They're really good at that. Oh, well, if you don't say yes, I'm going to go on to your colleague. You don't want them to get all the, all the leads, do you? Yeah, don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. And don't be afraid, just as we're on this subject one last time, don't be afraid to ask for proof of concept. Don't be afraid to ask them to prove that what they're trying to sell you works. Hey, can I call somebody locally who's been using you for the last 12 months and talk to them about the leads that they've been receiving? Hey, can I call somebody and ask them this question? Hey, can you send me some reports that show the volume of leads and how they're dispersed? Hey, did you ever have somebody on the outside review your website and show all the analytics on the back end? Like, don't be afraid to ask questions. When you're just talking to a salesperson, when you're talking to a telemarketer, they won't know how to answer you. If the company is really interested in your business, they'll either get somebody who can answer you to call you back, or they'll just move on to somebody else. And you can be okay with either one, right? Just be cautious of it.
Actually, Rick, there was, you know what, you reminded me of something, because I've gotten more than one. And I asked that question about, well, do you have somebody that another agent I can speak with, blah, blah, blah. And they said, oh, we don't do that. We like to do that. And I went on their website and say, I can't think of it. And I actually tracked down a Keller Williams person, because they actually had a Keller Williams person from New Jersey on it. And I did call him and stuff. And he said, you know what had happened is, at the very beginning, it was really good. And like, they asked me right away if I would do, give a reference, and he did. And he's like, honestly, I've never gotten any, so I didn't do it. I've never gotten anything after that. It just was by luck. I got some rental and I thought, oh, this was great. But so it was interesting.
About a month and a half ago, I started to get calls from many of you saying, hey, what do you know about OJO referral company? Right? It's this company that, if you sign up for them, they send you leads, but I didn't get that call one time. I got that call 25 times, right? Or 30 times, right? So what I knew, they're just calling down the roster, right? And so a week later, people can call me or email me and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Have you ever heard of them? And my answer was, yes, I've heard of them. And 30 of your colleagues have already said yes to them. There's no reason for you not to say yes to, because you only pay a referral fee on the back end. But again, they're just calling through a roster. It happens all the time. Go ahead, John.
I don't know if this is the most productive way to use my time, or is it, I might just have too much free time on my hand, but I see, like, when I get these calls from like people offering leads as a role play session, because I know already in my head when I pick up the phone and I hear them, I'm not in a position to, to even buy leads. And even if I was, I'm not interested. So like, I just think of it as a role play session, because they're salespeople too. So I see how they handle objections and how they overcome that stuff, and see if I could potentially implement any of that stuff into like my verbiage and how I speak to people. Because I said, they're salespeople too. And yeah, so I do that sometimes when I'm bored. I entertain them, knowing that I'm not going to buy into their leads.
Yep, I love it, right? Because, right, you're either winning or you're learning, right? And so if that call is not necessarily a win for you, you might as well just learn from it, practice, right? All those things. I love that. It's awesome. Yes, Bogdan.
Yes, so I interviewed a dozen in the past years. And when you ask them for references, usually they run like rats.
Yeah, we're having a real hard time hearing you, Bogdan. Oh goodness! Now it sounds like you crashed your car into a tree.
No, sorry, somebody was trying to call me. Probably one of those marketing people. So yeah, what I wanted to say, I probably in the past 2 years interview dozen of them, and every time I ask for a reference, so they say yeah, and they run like rats.
Yes, that's right.
They're most of them are scams. They sell the same leads that we can get on command. So It's like me running Facebook ads and selling them, or more to other realtors.
You got it. Here's how we'll end our call tonight. Because ironically and crazily, we're out of time. I heard Gary say about 3 or 4 years ago, I've heard him say it for almost 20 years, but he reiterated it about 4 years ago or so, when the whole hubbub of Zillow is going to become a broker. What are we all going to do because Zillow is going to become a broker? And he looked at us and said, I for the life of me, I just don't understand why you're concerned about that. First of all, if there's some kind of danger to that, well, you did it. You gave them the power that they have by not building large enough databases and not communicating with people at a high enough level that you're creating loyalty to you, not marketing at a level that you're creating awareness around you and your services, so that an outside company like that company or another one was able to come in and steal all of your people from you. You did that. They didn't do it. You did it. So you don't get on the back end when they're now going to use all the data that you handed them on a silver platter. And this is Gary talking, some of you paying them to do it, and then get upset when they turn it around and use it against you. That's the way business in America works, boys and girls. Why are you upset? And he's right? The only reason aggregators exist today is because the real estate industry is lazy. That's the only reason they exist. Somebody from the outside said, oh, you know what? These folks didn't do a very good job of staying in touch with their contacts, and they don't do a very good job of marketing their services. I think we could do a better job on both. Let's go out and take their people. Here's what's fun. That same concept is available to you today. Look around. There's only 32 of you on this call other than me. How many real estate agents are there in Fairfield County or in Fairfield, Litchfield, and New Haven and Hartford counties? Right? How many people are there versus real estate agents? What if you just decided to become your local aggregator? You just have to create a loyalty program for your own database. You have to build your own database if you haven't done that first, create a loyalty program around it, and then create a marketing program that attracts new people to you. Just grab everybody. People say to me all the time, you know what, because I am apt to say, look, you say there's no listings, except every single morning I get on the MLS, just like you do, and what do I see? New listings. So wait a minute, which is it? Are there no listings or are there listings? Well, if you get on the MLS every morning and you see new listings, now I'm not saying there's tens and 20s and hundreds of new listings, but if there's one, isn't the real goal of you owning a real estate business to get in front of as many people as possible, to win as much of that business as possible? Isn't that the goal? And so how do you do that? Well, that one wasn't going to be mine. They listed with that agent at Coldwell Banker. Yeah, because that agent at Coldwell Banker had them in their database and they were communicating with them 36 times a year. What if you found that person via marketing, even if you don't know them, and communicated with them that much or more, communicated better, offered cooler events, were a better resource? And here's what's real. That person that they listed with didn't communicate with them 36 times that year. Which means if you did, you'd be the winner. Remember, 88% of people say they would use the real estate agent again, 12% actually do. 88 to 12. That's what this conversation is about your opportunity to be your local Zillow. Just make the decision and go and do it. I see some of you on this call that live in places that is really a huge opportunity for you. Others of you might have to fight a little bit more, right? Because some of you are just in larger population density areas. Some of you are not. Either of those two they're still opportunities. Catching my drift? In 1988, Kevin Costner learned a really valuable lesson. He said, build it and they will come. Remember Field of Dreams?
Great movie.
You just have to go and build it. But if he didn't build the baseball field, guess what? Nope, none of the ghosts ever would have come. The same thing happens in your real estate business. You've got to build it. You've got to build the database, build the loyalty program, build the marketing, and then get it out. And all of a sudden they will come. Stop being fearful of people who have been in the business longer than you. Stop being fearful of other companies. Stop being fearful of Zillow or of aggregators. Take a stand that says, I'm going to be that. I know how to do it. And now I'm committing to go ahead and getting it done. Give yourself a deadline, send that deadline to me, and I will help you stay on track. Guys, I hope this was helpful for you today. We are out of time by over 5 minutes. Thank you for that extra 5. We will finish up tomorrow with agent-to-agent referral business, do a little lead generation exercise, and then start with buyers. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you, Rick.
Good night.
Always helpful.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.